It says, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Some imagine Satan with horns, with a pitchfork, breathing fire. They forget that Satan does not originate from some hotspot in the center of the earth. He was a being of brightness and dazzling beauty. Satan, the deceiver and the destroyer, was cast out of heaven to this earth. And Revelation chapter 12, verse 12, warns us. It says, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time. That's Revelation 12, verse 12. The devil was cast out from heaven to this earth. So now you may wonder, did God create the earth as a place to dump off the devil? Did God have such a problem with Satan, which is why he created the earth? But let's look at what the Bible says. The Bible tells us that the earth was created perfect. The air was fresh and the waters were clean and pure. Genesis chapter 1 verse 28 says, Adam and Eve would have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on this earth. Adam, not Satan, was given authority over the earth. Adam is the prince of this planet. Satan came to the Garden of Eden as a great deceiver. So you may ask yourself another question. Why didn't God program Adam and Eve's minds so that they could be against the deceiver? The thing is that Satan charged the government of God as unjust. Satan said God was unfair, that God was restricted, and that God's laws were unreasonable. If God had not allowed Satan to tempt Adam and Eve in the garden, Satan would have said, God knows I am right. He would have said that God knows that my way is better than his way. A loving God gave Adam and Eve the freedom to choose. God allowed Satan to come into the garden. God limited Satan to one tree in the whole entire world. When you look at it, God did all he could to protect Adam and Eve. But Eve entered into Satan's ground, and there she was tempted. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, Satan said, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree in the garden? Meaning, hasn't God given you the fruit of every tree? But Eve responded with these words. She said, we may eat the fruit of the trees in the garden. God has been good to us and given us in abundance all the trees on earth and all the trees in the garden. Then she goes on to say, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. It was a simple choice, a tree in the center of the garden. It wasn't a difficult test. God said, freely eat of every tree, except the tree in the middle of the garden. He said, that one is mine. God's tree selection, you can say it was random. There was no rational basis behind this command. The tree wasn't poisonous. God's test was one of loyalty, one of obedience, and one of allegiance. And Eve was stunned to hear the devil contradict God. Through the serpent, Satan said, and the serpent said to the woman, "You shall not surely die, for God knows that the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Lucifer wanted to be like God. He wanted to usurp God's throne. Lucifer wanted to make the law, not to obey the law. He wanted to command allegiance, not to be obedient. Satan contradicted God and said, "You will not surely die." He said to Eve, "You can make your own rules. I'm like a god. I do as I please. You can be your own God too. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. So go ahead and eat of the tree." You know, something that Eve sinned was merely eating the forbidden fruit. But it was far deeper when you think about it, brothers and sisters. Eve's sin was rejecting God as her supreme authority. Her sin was rebellion against God. She placed her desires above God's will. She rejected God's authority. The devil is a deceiver. He promised joy, but sin brings nothing that is related to joy. Sin brings guilt, shame, and fear.